Today, I'm going to talk about grinders, people who grind. And this term uh, came up a couple of months ago, about a month and a half ago. I was visiting a friend back on the East Coast, and he is an inventor, or was an inventor. And he had a lot of different ideas. Would develop products, he would start a company up and get the venture capital, start the company up, and then sell it at the end. And he did well for himself. And he brought this idea up about grinders. And he said that most employers want grinders. And as we talked about it, I agreed with him. We were sitting at a little near his retirement community at a little ice cream shop sitting outside. And his idea of a grinder is someone who just does what they're supposed to do. They don't ask questions, they don't show initiative, they don't try new ways, they just grind. And this is true of people at all levels. If you're a janitor, then your boss wants you to sweep the floor and clean the toilets, et cetera, just like the policy manual says, and in the amount of time that the policy manual says to do it. They don't want you to come up with new, fresh ideas. Just grind, just do your job. And this holds true with higher level jobs as well. Let's say a physician at a hospital. The physician is supposed to go and see however many, 15 patients per hour, whatever it is. You're supposed to walk in, say hello, smile, look at the chart, figure out what's up, tell the person, tell the nurse, write the order, get on to the next room. You're supposed to grind. You're not supposed to say, well, I think this patient really needs a friendly ear, so I'm going to hang out in here for half an hour and talk to the person. No, if you are hired by a hospital to be a doctor, you are supposed to be a grinder, not an innovator, not a nice person who talks to patients for way too long and loses the hospital money. You are supposed to grind. Same thing at so many different kinds of jobs. And I recall that I made this mistake back when I was an employee. I have initiative. I have ideas. I'm creative. I step out of bounds sometimes, and that's not appropriate when you're a grinder. I recall one time back when I was a cop, I was working a side hustle doing executive protection. And the family, I believe at that time, the whole family's net worth was around 75 billion. And I jumped in, and the matriarch of the family needed to go from one place to another, and she was in a wheelchair. And so I went over and I'm like, oh, here, I can do that. And I pushed her where she needed to go. And I later realized that the executive protection team for the family and for the company, they didn't like that I did that. That should have been a family function. If the family wanted one of their servants, their executive protection, their bodyguard team to do something, they would have asked. And the bodyguard team should have stayed away, stayed in the shadows until they were asked to step out of the shadows. And as the local yokel off-duty cop who the team hired, I messed up. And I should have just been a grinder. My job was to linger around the outside of the building and make sure no protesters showed up. I was supposed to grind, but I jumped in and did this thing and kind of messed it up for the team. Not in a big way, but I'm sure that the team's boss's boss gave them a talking to and said, hey, make sure these local yokels in the future events know that they're not supposed to jump in and help with family issues. So that is just one example of messing up and not grinding. I have spent most of my life not being a grinder, but being an innovator, an entrepreneur, sometimes a success, sometimes not. But that is my temperament. That is what I do. And as I was sitting chatting with my friend about his idea of the grinder, and we're looking up at this little outdoor ice cream store where we're sitting, looking up at the menu, and he was saying, yeah, he says the person who is making ice cream there, they are supposed to grind. They're not supposed to come up with new flavors, new combinations, et cetera, new sizes, no. They're supposed to grind. They're supposed to in a friendly way, say, hi, how can I help you? And then the person gives the order. They're supposed to scoop it in, give a smile, take the money, and get the person out. And then I made the point and said, yes, what if the gal, though, who is serving the ice cream up today, what if she decides that she does want to be the innovator and come up with ice cream flavors and do all this kind of thing and new recipes? I said, she strikes out and she starts her own little ice cream store up. He says, yeah, absolutely. She's not a grinder. She's an innovator. She's an entrepreneur. and she will start the ice cream store up. She'll make a success of it. And then one day she will hire an employee. And guess what she wants that employee to do? Grind. So I had to admit he was completely right about this. So what's the point in all of this? I guess the point is that I would suggest that if you are a young person starting out in life, if you think you have that innovative entrepreneurial spirit, go for it. Give it a go. It's really hard. Most businesses fail in the first year, and then a bunch more fail in the next 3 years, a bunch more in the next 5. Very few are left standing after 10 years. If you can make that happen, do it. You're not a grinder. You're an innovator. Now, you will discover as an entrepreneur that once you get things up and going, you get the flywheel going, your own job is going to turn into a lot more grinding than it once was. You're going to spend some time innovating, but you're going to spend a lot of time dealing with the same old issues of this new chief executive officer we hired who we thought was going to just run with stuff. He's coming up with all these new ideas. That's not his job. We just need him to run the 500 ice cream stores, not be the innovator. We didn't tell him to do that. You're going to still be dealing with grinders who are trying to be innovators. But give it a go. If you can make it work and you can stay happy as an entrepreneur, that's awesome. Just know that at some point you're going to have to get back to grinding again. If you give it a try as an entrepreneur and you fail and you just fall flat on your face and you cannot make it in the free market as an entrepreneur, then I would say second step would be go be a grinder in the free market at a high level. It's better to be a grinder doctor than a grinder janitor, I think. You make more money. Of course, you don't get as much time off. You have a lot more stress, but kind of your choice. If you can't make it in the free market as a grinder, then I don't know that you've kind of failed. And at that point, then maybe you have to go become a bureaucrat for the government or something and be a city planner or a police officer or something like that. But I would suggest first you go for being the innovator entrepreneur. And if you can't make it, go out into the private sector and be a grinder. And then maybe in 5 or 10 years, if you get sick enough of grinding, go try being an entrepreneur again. So that was just my idea of what grinding is based on what I learned from my buddy. And I think he was right. What are your thoughts about grinding? Are you a grinder or are you an entrepreneur? Do you think that grinding is okay? Is it acceptable? Is it honorable? I think it is. I wish I had more grinders. Grinders make it possible for entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. Nothing wrong with being a grinder. What are your thoughts?